Hello, Vol Nation. Welcome to another episode of Believe in Tennessee Football. I'm your host, as always, Kyler Kerberson, joined with Reed Bacon. Have another great podcast today. We were talking about the Heisman Trophy, Hendon getting snubbed, not getting the invite, and Caleb Williams winning it. Then we were also talking about the Biletnikoff, Jalin, and everything he did this year to deserve it. And a little bit of a hot take with it. So you guys aren't going to want to miss that. Before we get into any of that, if you guys are watching on YouTube, please subscribe, leave a comment, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. It helps us so much, helps with the algorithm. So please do that. If you're listening, rate and review. Leave 5 stars if you can. Download and re-download. That also helps us out. We do have merch now, so you guys go check that out. How We Doing Bud t-shirts. They're great for Christmas presents for the Vol fan in your life. And if you want to follow us on social media, at Believe in Tennessee for our main account on Twitter, at rbacon26 for Reed, at Kyler Kerberson for myself on all social media platforms. And yeah, so let's get into it.
The game. Snap, the kick is in the air, and the kick this time is no. Sir-ree. No, sir-ree. Final score, Tennessee 20, Florida 17. Pandemonium reigns.
Loads up, fires long for the end zone. The pass is going to be caught. Tennessee wins! It's by Tennessee to one Jennings. Jennings makes the catch in the end zone on the Hail Mary.
Down at the 35, to the 40, to the 45, to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. What did he do? All he did was score. Joey Pence, touchdown on play number 1.
All right, so before we jump into the podcast, got to shout out our number one sponsor, betonline.ag. It is the place to go for betting. It is your number one source for betting. They have all the odds, all the team totals, all the parlays that you could ever want, and they cover every sport. You got NFL, you got NBA, you got tennis, you got golf, you got baseball, you got everything you could think of. It is the place to go if you're going to bet on anything and make anything exciting. So for first-time signups, go over to betonline.ag, and for a 50% welcome bonus, use promo code BELIEVE. BLEAV at checkout and receive that 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, welcome in, everybody. Another amazing podcast for you. We're going to touch on some stuff that we didn't get to in previous podcasts and also catch up on the weekend. But first, Reed, how we doing, bud?
Kyler, big sexy man. I got to see you this weekend, so it was a great weekend.
Yeah.
I will say I have to pick a bone with you. I don't like that you say we have another great podcast for you, because sometimes they're okay. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're really good. Other times we've had some stinkers. So maybe we need
obviously there's going to be good ones and bad ones. But, but right now, as we start, I have no idea if it's going to be good or bad. So I'm going to guess great.
Okay. All right. I was going to say don't lie to the people because you don't know yet, but then I like the positive trajectory.
You have to. Yeah. Or if I'm not over here smiling, it's going to be a bad podcast.
Well, you weren't smiling for the South Carolina one, so yeah, that was a tough podcast to get through.
That's right. I don't think our watchers and listeners even wanted to watch or listen to that. They were just like, God, I don't want to be depressed.
Exactly. But yeah, man, I'm doing well. It was a great weekend. Friday night, just took it easy, relaxed, worked out, binge watched some Tulsa King with my mom. Roberto, my dad he's been sick the past week, so he was downstairs trying to, rest and get the film better. Georgia was out, so Karen and I just dominated some TV watching. And then Saturday, man, came over, got to see you Saturday drove to Nashville, got there in time for a great church service at St. Henry's Catholic Church, kind of in between Bellmead and Bellevue area.
Mm.
And then my mom wanted to go to Sperry's, one of her favorite, probably really is her favorite restaurant to go to for dinner. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming you know what Sperry's is. It's a school steak, school
Know what
steakhouse.
Sperry's is. It is a very good one. I actually just went to Moto Cucina, which is an Italian restaurant. It's right next to Cane Prime last night for the company Christmas dinner. And they had all these leftovers, and I took like a whole thing of just steak. That's all it was. Just steak. And I had 2 steak sandwiches for lunch today. It was awesome.
Was the food good? Did you like the place?
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible. Yeah. We did this like whole like menu thing where it was like appetizers come out, then salads, then mains, then dessert. Like it was like just coursed through.
Yeah. That is hype. Yeah, so Karen and I did that Saturday night, and then woke up Sunday and got to see your beautiful smiling face for the Titans game. So we were able to, or you got tickets from one of your clients.
Shout out to Ferguson Lighting. They are a vendor of Rogers Build and sell lights and plumbing and tile and appliances and all that stuff. And they have box seats for the Titans game. Gave it to us because we spent some money with them. So shout out to them. Very much appreciate that. And it was a good time. Titans laid an egg, but it was still good seeing you.
Yeah, and I don't take those losses on the chin anymore. Like I've said on here, like I know who my Titans are. Like started the season, I was very optimistic, but still was like, hey, I still don't trust necessarily the offensive line. Then when Taylor Lewan goes down, I'm definitely nervous about it. Was waiting to see if we had any chance of replacing A.J. Brown on the outside. Now, as the season's gone on, I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. We're going to make the playoffs, just win the division. But now I'm like, I don't even know if I even really care to win the division because I know they're not going to do anything in the playoffs. Just give me the better draft picks. Yeah. So it was like, I was there and I enjoyed watching it. Like I always enjoy being in the stadium. There's no way not to enjoy it when you're in a suite or a box. Like it's just, it's first class. It's food, drink, convenience, the whole 9 yards. So it's great. And then after that, got to go to Local Taco, another one of my favorite spots over in Nashville. So it was nice. And my mom and I, from living over there a couple times, it's always good to be back, man. I thoroughly I love Nashville. It's Knoxville and Nashville are both home for me. So but yeah,
we do have to tell a story before we move into any Tennessee stuff. But as we're leaving, trying to get out of the stadium, Reed, because usually you have to wait on elevators when you're in the box seats, and it takes a while for the elevator. So we're like, all right, let's find some stairs. Reed finds a stairwell, doors closed, and I immediately am like, I don't want to get locked in a stairwell, so go down and check. He goes down to the very bottom, sees that the door's open. He's like, all right, come on. So I come down there. We literally walk out on the floor. And as soon as we walk out, the Jacksonville Jaguars head coaches just came out of an elevator, and they're just walking right by us. And it's like literally going into locker rooms, like down into wherever everybody like underneath the stadium is. And Reed and I just start walking, and the guy's like, hey, do you guys have credentials? I was like, no, we're just trying to get out of here. He's like, you need to go back up. But follow Reed, and maybe you might run into somebody important.
Yeah. That happened a lot this weekend. We ran into some different. I know so many people. I would say 99.9% of the people that listen or watch this pod are going to disagree with me, but I think Garth Brooks is extremely overrated. I don't think it's me. But yes, every time I'm in Nashville, you see somebody. Like we were at Sperry's eating, and Garth Brooks and his wife Trisha Yearwood were right behind us. No, I didn't say anything to him. No one was bothering him. As we left, or as we were entering that day, it's the Chrisley family that I don't really know much about them except they're on TV, and their daughter and the wife was coming out when we were there.
Nashville is LA of the South.
Seriously, though, it is. And then we saw there was someone else too. So it was hilarious because, like Kyler said, we walk out of the suite and we're like, all right, we got to go. Karen's waiting on us to pick us up. And so there's a line starting to form, like you were explaining at the elevator, and the lady was like, "Hey, if you guys don't want to wait, you can go right and go down stairwells, and then an escalator, or you could go left and go down a ramp," is what she called it. Well, everyone either went towards the stairs and the escalator, and of course, we just were like, "We'll go the other way," and so it's just Kyler and I chose that way. Well, then I see it says stairwell, but it says fire exit. And we're looking around. I'm like, well, I don't see a ramp. And you're like, bro, I don't think that's it. And I was like, well, who cares? Like, it's a stairwell. Like, we can get down.
We're going to get out eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we don't know where the ramp is. Let's just take these stairs. So we go in the stairwell, and it's a kind of an eerie feeling because it's a big stairwell. And like, there's 60,000 people trying to exit the stadium, but yet you and I are the only ones that end up in this one stairwell. So maybe it really was a fire exit. And you were like, and I was like, come on, dude. And you're like, no, you're like, no, dude. You're like, I was like, come on, what are you doing? You're like, no, like, what if the doors don't unlock? Like, go check. So I go down one level to 4 and I pull the doors. I was like, yeah, dude, this was not unlocked. Like, you might want to stay. So I went down to number 3. Well, as I was going to check that door to open it, like right as I'm opening it, a lady walks out, and I don't know what her name was, but she was dressed very nicely. And I was like, and she had her media credentials. I was like, oh, I think she was one of the local people for like choosing like News 5 over there. Like, I've seen her before, but I didn't know who it was. I was like, oh, this is like the press box area and all that stuff. And they were all starting to beeline it down to go. Well, we thought they were leaving, did not put 2 and 2 together. Like, hey, they got to go do like the pressers and all that. So I yelled to Kyle, I was like, hey, it's unlocked. Come on down. So I stood there and waited and just watched all the media members flow out, rushing down. Finally, Kyler gets down there, and then I was like, well, I guess we'll just follow them on the way out. And as we open the door and walk out, we literally see to the right, and here's all the Jacksonville Jaguars coaching staff that was up in the box flowing. And we're like, so I looked at Kyle. I was like, this is awkward. Like, and I was like joking. I was like, oh, good win, Jags. And then on the other side of the railing, it's funny because the Titans coaches were coming down. So it's kind of funny that the coaching staff they walk right by each other. They have a little baby barrier, but you walk right by each other.
No, I think most coaches' boxes are literally right next to each other in most stadiums.
And all those coaches are all a bunch of good old boys. Like, they all pretty much know each other. So it's not like it's going to be weird. It's not like, you beat us in this regular season game, let's fight. So yeah, it was hilarious because Kyler and I were like, whatever. Like, and we were like, we'll just walk, and if someone says something to us, okay, but like, we're not gonna like try to sneak around and find something. And then that's when they're like, hey, what are y'all doing down here? And we're like, we're just trying to leave. Like,
yeah, that's it, man. I'm not trying to steal anything. I'm not trying to get special treatment. I'm just trying to get out of here.
Yeah, we don't care. We don't need to go see the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Titans locker room. So yeah, we left, but that was it. The funny part was when we're walking, and like I said, it was so eerie because all these people are trying to leave, and you and I are the only ones in this. And it's a big stairwell. It's like a double wide, like 2-lane stairwell. So it's not a small one. It's big, and it's like, how are we the only ones in here until we ran into the media people? So it was funny, just typical you and I stuff. We're hanging. Yeah, exactly. We're hanging out, but yeah, it was a great weekend, and it was great seeing you.
So it was a good cap to the weekend, even though the Titans lost. But so things that we did not talk about in the last podcast are awards, and obviously the 2 big ones, the Heisman and the Biletnikoff. So let's start with the Heisman. I have little to no respect left for the actual award. I always knew that, awards are political, and there's a lot more that goes into them besides the actual stats or exactly what you do on the field. A lot of it is popularity, and there's a reason why, all these awards are voted on by media. So it's like, does that media person like you as a person? That's what matters more. Like, when you interview with them and they're like, hey, he did a good job and he was nice and, he wasn't short with me, they'll vote you in over another guy who was short, who might be a better player than you. So that part of it. But Caleb Williams ended up winning the Heisman. and he wholeheartedly deserves that Heisman. He had the best season of any quarterback this year, and if he was not on that team, they would not have won 10 games. He is the only reason. Their defense is atrocious. Yeah, I mean, everyone, said stuff about our defense and letting up that many points to South Carolina. It's not even close. USC's is horrible. So he had to push through a lot to just even be able to win in the Pac-12 at all. So I think he does deserve it. But having Stetson Bennett in the top 4 is so ridiculous. It has nothing to do with his actual stats of this year. It is the fact that he's played multiple years. He has a really good winning percentage. His team is in the playoffs for the second year in a row, and he's the quarterback of that team. But I thought when people said it, the best is you take these 4 guys that went up for the Heisman in Hendon, and you switch them around and put them on different teams. If Stetson Bennett was on USC, they'd go 5-7. Like, if Caleb Williams was on any of the other teams, they all have success. If Stetson Bennett was on any other teams, they don't have the same amount of success. And I feel good about that. Maybe Max Duggan, maybe not have that much success at other places because TCU's defense has magically gotten away with things this year for some reason. But Stetson is a fine player, and he is a good quality quarterback in college. But in no way is this guy the 4th best quarterback in the nation and gets to go to New York for the Heisman. I mean, how can another SEC player win SEC Player of the Year and Stetson Bennett gets voted?
So my quick question for you before I jump in is when did you lose your respect for the Heisman? Was it this year because of what they did to Hendon, or is it years past?
I think it's slowly been going down. And I think it all started in 97. You know what I mean? It's just but there are some years that Lamar Jackson should have won the Heisman the year he won the Heisman. I wholeheartedly believe that. Or Johnny Manziel or Cam Newton. Those were legit. There's no one else that should have won. So in that sense, I do feel like they give it to the right person. But this bringing in these other guys, it never makes sense. It's never I just never agree with who they have there. And like I said, it's just so political and so behind the scenes and has nothing to do with your play on the field.
Yeah, so we were still younger when all the stuff happened with Peyton, which is funny if you think about that. Charles Woodson, Peyton Manning, Randy Moss, and Ryan Leaf, and 3 of those dudes are NFL Hall of Famers, and 2 of them, I mean, maybe Charles Woodson as well, but Randy Moss and Peyton Manning are arguably the best ever at their positions. I'm just saying, people could legitimately
in one year, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's insane. It's insane. It's probably, it might be the best group of Heisman finishes, and that's even with one of the 4 being one of the biggest busts in all of the NFL and stuff. But I personally don't care about the Heisman. I think it's funny because I was on Xbox Live middle way through this NFL season, and I had 2 of my buddies on there, and they were arguing about the Heisman. And one was if Hendon can win the Heisman this year, it'll be great for Tennessee, good for recruiting and stuff like that. My other buddy's who cares? The Heisman doesn't mean anything. And he's it's political. It doesn't have the same luster or is the same kind of juice as it used to have. And I don't even want to say that because I haven't been around that long. So hell, it could have been a bunch of BS and political back then and not have gone to the same people. So I'm not going to speak on something if I wasn't there. But I bring that argument up to say I think both are true. I think both can be true. You still want your team to win it so that you can, have recruits come in and take pictures with it or say, come play for Coach Heupel and he can win you the Heisman. and then also think that like it's not what it meant to be, or like it is a popularity contest. So personally, I think both things can be true. And so I thought that was I thought it was funny that we were arguing about that. I personally, I guess you could say it's kind of hypocritical. Like, would I've loved for Hendon to be there so that we could have one at the University of Tennessee over in the Anderson training facility when people come in? Yeah, sure. But like, I don't watch it. I don't get fired up about it. I don't get upset about it. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you just have to expect.
And it's not like you enjoy Tennessee football because we have Heisman's. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
it's
and
great for the guys, but
right. But I also just, I'm not going to say and say like, oh, as a Tennessee fan, I expect for us to get screwed or get the middle finger. But like, I just expect that for a lot of teams and a lot of different situations, if you're not a blue blood or like, you know what I mean? And like, Tennessee is a blue blood college program, but we all know that Ohio State, Notre Dame, and USC, and Bama with Saban, like they get that type of stuff. And so I personally don't watch it. I mean, like you said, good point. The years that Johnny Manziel or Lamar Jackson or like you said, Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, like all those guys, like, yeah, they deserve it. They were the best players. So I'm fine with them winning it. Hell, I was even happy to see Devontae Smith win it when he was at Bama, because I thought Buddy was
definitely shouldn't have been Mac Jones.
Well, like, I just think, yeah, I think Devontae Smith was cold blooded, and it was nice to see a receiver get it besides just being a quarterback award. And I will say, I don't watch it and don't really keep up with it. What I mean, like, if I hear about who won it, like, okay, cool, like, great, I move on about my day. But like, the last time I remember watching one and was bummed is like, and I don't really like him as a person or a player in the NFL, but I did really respect his game in college. But like, Ndamukong Suh probably should have won it the year that he was there. I remember, and you know me, this ties into the bigger picture for all this, and I'll wrap all this up in just a second. But like, I'm a big eye test guy. Like, I like looking at stats, but like, I trust my eyes, and that's what frustrates me, because there's so many of these voters. And I just don't think that they either have enough time, or they don't, like, because I'm assuming they are. Yeah, exactly. And I think they are very busy, like, with their day-to-day jobs. And like, it's tough to watch every football game all the way through. So like, I think we have a lot of people voting that either just look at the stats, maybe watched one guy play one time, and if he played great, that's their impression. If he played bad, that's their impression. And then that, like I said, stats, a couple watch, maybe they got some Sports Center highlight watches in there. And I would rather the Heisman Trophy be like, hey, we're going to get 18 people, and their job is to be the Heisman Trophy committee. And like, they need to legitimately watch film and watch all these games through, take everything into account, and like I said, like you already said, some years they do get it right in most people's opinion. But for me, when Ndamukong Suh didn't win it that year, and I was just like, it's a quarterback, it's a receiver, it's a running back thing. It's not necessarily the best.
That part of it kind of stinks too, where it's like you have to be a certain position to get it, which is why, like what you said earlier, like Devontae Smith winning it was really cool, because it wasn't a quarterback.
Right.
It's just been quarterbacks consistently, and then throwing in a couple running backs in there.
Right. Right. And what I was going to say to tie that into the Ndamukong Suh thing, like, I remember being at Jack's house, and we watched that Texas-Nebraska, I think it was the Big 12 championship, and I was just so in awe of how Ndamukong Suh as a defensive tackle was just wrecking that game. Like, it's just like, I love that. It's just like with Aaron Donald last year in the Super Bowl, for an interior lineman to not just wreck the game, but basically like take it over. And then they got kind of screwed because he was coming on he'd gotten through to Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy throws it away to not take a sack, and there's like 1 second left. They kick the field goal. You know how it all is. Like, whatever. Whether it should have been 1 second left or not. But yeah, so that's why I'm like, I just don't care about it. And for the finalists this year, I'm happy Caleb Williams won. Like, for me, the Heisman Trophy this year, if Caleb Williams, I'm fine with that. Like, I've watched him. Now, I haven't watched him a ton, but I've watched him probably 2 games, and I think he's a fabulous player. I think Bryce Young is a fabulous player, so I would have been fine with Bryce Young winning. Now, once again, they're not going to give it to him because he won it last year, and that's just kind of how it goes, even if he probably maybe did deserve it this year.
Which is part of a problem with it. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't matter how well he played this year. Like, he probably wouldn't have gotten it unless it was like leaps and bounds above everybody else just because they're
Right.
like, well, he got it last year.
Right.
But
And
that's not how you should look at things. You should look at it as who's the best player.
Right. Right. And Max Duggan, man, I like Max a lot. I'm happy that TCU got into when Tennessee was out of it. I was pulling for them to make the playoff. I'm happy they made the playoff. I love watching that kid. Everyone loves that kid after watching him in the Big 12 Big 12 championship. Like, dude's a baller. Like, that was sick as hell. And so I was happy for him. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I actually think Stetson's a pretty good little ball player. Like, I really do. Now, does he deserve to be there over Hendon Hooker? No, like, he doesn't. But like, I think he gets knocked as being like a game manager, and I think he is much more than a game manager. I think that he does, like, when I've watched him with my eyes, like, he makes the right plays. Like, he's much more than Alabama of the years past, or some of these other good teams that just kind of had a system quarterback or a game manager. Like, he makes some plays, and like, I think Stetson's a little bit better than maybe people would think. But I guess I can't say that because he got to be a Heisman finalist and didn't deserve it. So I guess he's getting enough credit. My biggest one that I was going to be furious if you won it was C.J. Stroud, because like, I've watched C.J. play, and I'm like, it's just another Ohio State product of the moment. They beat up on all these crappy teams all year. He some foreshadowing. I think he does have the best receiver on his team in college with Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll get there. And so it's like, I've watched him play against Penn State. Penn State's not that good, and like, he didn't look good at all in that game. He didn't look good against Michigan. So it's like, he pads all his stats, has one important game, and they get blown out, and he doesn't look good. Like, so I'm just so over that Ohio State BS. So I listen, if Stetson goes and Hendon goes instead of CJ Stroud, I would have loved that. Like, I would have been like, okay, bet. Like, that's awesome, because like, I just watch it with my eyes, and I just don't see it from CJ. And I'm like, I'm just sick of the pad stat, the stats padding against Indiana, Iowa, all this bull crap. It's like, there's nothing that makes me watch and be like, I don't think he's anywhere as good as Caleb Williams or Max Duggan or Bryce Young or Hendon Hooker or Stetson Bennett from time to time. Stetson had some really nice plays in the game against Tennessee, which was the biggest game of the year at the time for them. Like,
which is why I said, like, Stetson is a good college quarterback. That is, like, that's true. And like, when you're comparing to like Alabama teams of the past, like, I would take Stetson over AJ McCarron and Greg McElroy and those guys that were just, had big ass running backs and wide receivers out the ass,
or Blake Sims or Jacob Coker or any of those guys. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking Stetson over them.
I take him over Jordan Jefferson, who was in the national championship game with LSU. Like, he's
CJ Stroud. It reminds me of Troy Smith, the quarterback for OSU, who won it. And I remember watching games that year and being like, he's throwing 50-50 balls to his wide receivers. Every single one deep ball is a 50-50 ball, and his wide receivers are making incredible plays.
He had Ted Ginn and Santonio Holmes as wide receivers.
Yeah.
And their defense was loaded.
Yeah. So it was insane. Like, his touchdowns were 60-yard touchdowns, and they were jump balls in the end zone.
Right.
And I was just like, I've never seen someone underperform but still make it all the way because everyone around him was so good.
I mean, seriously, Kyler, like, you just put yourself in a situation where you go to a big time school that has a lot of people around you, and it's like, like, you're going to be there even if you don't really deserve it because you're at the school and padding stats and like, so.
Hey, and how incredible is Lincoln Riley's run of Heisman quarterbacks? I mean, if you're a quarterback, you got to look at him and go, hey, he might not win national championships, but I'll get a Heisman and probably get drafted early because all he cares about is offense.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would not go there at all. I mean, like, if I met with him and if I was a, top 3, top 5 quarterback coming out in USC, I mean, I'd go out there and take my visit. And, USC's cool even for, a guy from the South or the East Coast, wherever you want to call it. Like, I'm not going there because I want to win. Like, I don't care about the Heisman Trophy. Like, if our team goes 9-3 and I don't get to play in a college football playoff, like, I don't care about the Heisman Trophy. That's me personally. Like, when I have a Josh Heupel or you have these other good offensive minds, that are also going to get you a chance to win a national championship. But say all that to say this. Now we go to the Biletnikoff Award winner. And it was funny. Like, I didn't even know the awards were going on the Thursday. And I sit down for dinner and I look up. I'm like, oh, dang, the awards are on right now. Like, that's funny. And I didn't think they were going to give it to Jalin. I didn't. I thought, okay, Ohio State guy, Marvin Harrison's probably got the stats, like, whatever. Jalin won it. I couldn't be happier for Jalin. I couldn't be happier for Tennessee. Like, it was like a little bit of some revenge, or like some kudos to how good this team and how good this offense was. If Hendon, I know people could sit on Twitter and put all these stats and all this stuff and the comparison of the players. The best one and the funniest one is Hendon's the SEC Player of the Year, but doesn't go to Heisman. So that was the funniest
over
one.
Another SEC player,
right? So, but back to Biletnikoff. So it's like Jalin wins it, and he won it because he had the better stats, and he did have some big time moments in big time games. I mean, 5 touchdowns against Alabama is undeniable. Then the LSU catches he had, like the Kentucky catch, he had,
he had so many multiple touchdown games versus big opponents,
and he should have had one against Georgia. I mean, he was open twice, and Hendon missed him. So it's like he produced in the biggest games, even if it was just running straight and catching a ball. Like, he produced. Now, I went and I've watched Marvin Harrison Jr. I did watch some highlights of him. I absolutely think he is the better receiver. I think he's the best receiver in college football because he can do it all. He can run by you. He can contort his body and make catches that Jalin Hyatt wishes and he could. And that's not a knock on Jalin. Like, go make your money. No one can ever take that award from you. You were the best receiver in college football for that year. That's awesome. I'm just saying, like, I get if Ohio State fans are mad because as a Tennessee fan, like, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best. Like, he can do everything. He can legitimately, like, just go watch a 5-minute clip of his highlights and you will see every type of catch. A sideline catch to keep his feet in bounds, a catch where he makes some people miss and breaks tackles, one where he goes up and mosses somebody, one where he can go up and contort his body. Like, dude's a special player. Now, the one argument that people can have is, well, he's doing it against all these Big Ten slapdicks, and Jalen's out there doing it against Bama and all these other people. And I agree with you, And the other thing about Jalin,
but at the same time, what you just described, the complete wide receiver and the sideline catch and the jump ball and the taking a screen to the house and the making people miss and the toe taps. If you look at Jalin Hyatt highlights, there's not any of those. They're all, I'm running past somebody, I'm getting a deep ball, and I'm scoring. I mean, he had one touchdown where he broke a tackle, like that one versus UT Martin, I think, was like his only one. So, yes, it's a lot more simple of a game Jalin has.
Right. And there are times, don't get me wrong, Jalin, as the season went on, he had some really nice catches that we talked about where it was a kind of a skinny post or a dig route. And he did have those catches across the middle where he would get hit. And there was one I said, hey, I think it's his best catch of the year. I think it was against Georgia. It was wet, rainy, guy right on his back. He double caught it, but he still caught it. Like, so he did have some of those, but the majority of them just go route. And once again, I still think it's more of a product of Heupel when it comes to Hendon Hooker or when it comes to Jalin. Like, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a better receiver than Jalin Hyatt.
Yeah.
But how Coach Heupel puts his players in position to succeed is unbelievable. Just like I think Bryce Young and Caleb Williams are better quarterbacks. And I think Max Duggan or someone else could put the same stats up as Hendon put up in this offense. So it's like I also take that into when I'm watching it, my eye test and stuff like that. But I'm still super happy for Jalin.
Yeah.
In a million years going into the season, I never would expect it because – and you can still to this day, even with what's happened, you can still argue and say, well, technically, Jalen's not even the best receiver on the team. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, everybody thinks Cedric is.
Right. So, I mean, he just got injured. So,
yeah.
And that's nothing to take away from Jalin again. I'm just saying, like, Ohio State fans are going to say, well, he didn't deserve it. And I'm going to say, well, hell, there's some Tennessee fans that are going to tell you he ain't even the best receiver on the team.
Yeah. And I think Jalin deserved it because of what he did. The fact he had 15 touchdowns on the year. He had 5 versus Alabama. He had 2 or 3 versus LSU. If you say that, it's like, yeah, you obviously deserve this. If I'm a NFL head coach and I'm drafting receivers, I'm probably going to pick Marvin Harrison Jr. over Jalin Hyatt.
You're not probably. You're 100%. You're 100 out of 100 times.
Yeah, unless he has everything.
Unless you already have like an AJ Brown, a Justin Jefferson, a Cooper Kupp, even like a old head DeAndre Hopkins. Unless you already have one of those, and you're like, hey man, Jalin is special because he's going to take the top off. But this is a perfect example of like most deserving compared to better. Mm-hmm. You know, who's the more accomplished, who is the more accomplished, more deserving, you know, stats wise, what they did compared to who's the best.
Yeah, it's like the same of like getting you know, Ohio State in over Alabama or TCU in over Alabama, where Alabama's like, well, we would beat them if we played. Right. And it's like, you might be more talented, but you're not more deserving than TCU.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I like, you can almost view it as Jalin is like a DK Metcalf, where it's like he's got straight line speed and he'll beat you on the deep ball, but he's not really making a lot of cuts. And, you know, DK killed the combine, but he still wasn't, you know, the top 5 receiver drafted. Like, there were a lot of other receivers drafted ahead of him. So it's like, that's the same kind of avenue where it's like, yes, he is very good. He is. But this holistic view of the wide receiver is a lot different.
Right.
But to say all that, people don't get mad in the comments and say we're a bunch of haters.
No, we're so happy. We're so happy for him.
I'm so happy for Jalin. I love the fact that Tennessee now has a Biletnikoff winner.
Should have been insane. Did we not have one before that? Was that our first one? It's insane. It's
insane.
I mean, with the receivers that we had even before our time. So I don't even want to, you know, I've heard the names of all the, you know, Carl Pickens or Willie Gott, or, I mean, I'm leaving people out because it's before my time, but even during my time, I mean, probably my top 3 favorite Vol of all time was Peerless Price. I mean, I was obsessed with Peerless Price growing up. I mean, dude was an absolute dog. And then you had, you know, and I'm not comparing that they're better or whatever, and maybe this is just a fault of me being a young kid and loving those guys, but like I said, Peerless Price was fantastic. Dante Stallworth was fantastic. You know, Meacham had some absolute great run in him.
Meacham still has a single season record. He beat Jalin by 37 yards.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was like top 25 draft pick by the Saints. And then, I mean, obviously, everyone who's close to everyone's heart is Juwan Jennings and what that guy did, and like, you know, so there's been so many good receivers that have come through. I mean, Dante, I don't know if I said Dante Stallworth, but then even like Joey Kent. I mean, it's the list is pretty wild. So,
I mean, flash in the pan guys of like Justin Hunter and Cordero Patterson, they were great. Like,
yeah, CP's probably the best person I've ever seen with the ball in his hands at University of Tennessee. It was insane.
Yeah, he was crazy, dude.
Even James Banks. I mean, James Banks for some time. Kelly Washington. I mean,
who was the other guy with Meacham? Harold Jones. Gerald Jones. Yeah, Gerald Jones. He was number 4.
Yeah, what's his name? Kiffin absolutely made Gerald Jones a stud that year. I mean, we've had a lot of good ones.
Yeah, incredible. So I'm glad we finally had that in our trophy case. I'm glad I get to see the Biletnikoff with all the other ones in the complex, and just kind of puts a, you know, circle around Tennessee to say, hey, if you're a wide receiver, this is where you want to go.
Right.
All right. So before we get off the podcast, you know, some news broke today. We're recording a little late, but Mike Leach at Mississippi State has passed. And just wanted to say a quick word that, you know, a lot of people might view him as just a funny guy or someone who, says the most outlandish stuff, but that part of his character was great. The fact that he had an answer for everything, the fact that he was always entertaining, but this guy's mind and his knowledge of football and what he introduced to football and like the air Leach. I mean, he's a pioneer. He is, you can't write the history of college football without Mike Leach. And, the run that he's had, the different places he coached and the different guys that he coached, hell, he even coached Heupel when he was at OU. So, I mean, shout out to Mike Leach. What an amazing human being. And, it's just it's a sad day in the SEC.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. I hate it for his family and friends. And when you're in the coaching industry, you cross paths with a lot of people, whether it's other coaches, players, whatever. I can't speak to him personally. I've never met him. I was never around him. But for those people that he had those, really nice and good relationships with, man, I just feel bad for them. Yeah, life's short, goes by quick. I think you said it perfect. Like, you can't talk about college football without him. And I always liked it because he wasn't a player. He was an attorney, smart guy. And he said, you know what? I love this game. I'm going to go try to do it. And he did it, and he did differently. And very impressive to win where he won, whether, at Texas Tech, and then, what he did, he had some good seasons at Washington State. Very, very impressive. So, yeah. Also, to finish up, we will coming up in the coming weeks, we're going to have our big recruiting pod.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we'll do a breakdown of the Orange Bowl. We'll do a preview and a breakdown. And then we'll do our end of the year recap and award. So as much as it's a bummer that football season is kind of coming to an end, I still love those pods. I actually really enjoy talking about the recruits, and I love talking about the season as a whole. So that's kind of what we have going forward.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And I think I'm just going to rewatch Clemson's game versus North Carolina, the ACC championship, and really watch the quarterback and see what he has and see if there's anything we can pick up on. But yeah, some good pods down the road. So super excited about that. All right. Appreciate you guys watching and listening. If you are watching, please subscribe, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, leave a comment. If you're just listening, rate and review, download, re-download. Give us those 5 stars. It helps a lot. And we've got merch now. How we doing, bud? T-shirts. So you guys please get on that. They're great presents for Christmas for all the Vol fans out there. If you want to follow us on social media, at Believe in Tennessee for our main account on Twitter, at rbacon26 for Reed, at Kyler Kerberson for myself on all social media platforms. And we'll see you guys next week. As always, go Vols.